Join me today as we talk about a horror movie from the 70s, The Sentinel. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about The Sentinel, a horror movie from 1977. Not to be confused with the movie Sentinel from like 2005, 6, somewhere in there, with Michael Douglas and I think Kiefer Sutherland. Don't know, never saw the movie, just remember the trailers vaguely. But yeah, it's not that movie. I've never watched that movie. So today, we're going to talk about the other one, The Sentinel, from the 70s. Now, I came across this movie on the recommendation from a message board for the Shudder horror movie app, which I have, and seemed to be highly recommended, so I decided to watch it. Part of the reason was people kind of rambled off who all's in the cast, and well, it's a lot more extensive than most of the movies I talk about. Don't know how well you can see this, but it takes up a good chunk of the page here. So, I guess we should start there. So, our main character is played by Christina Rains. Her name's Allison. Christina Rains, looking at her credits, she looks familiar to me, but I couldn't see what I would have seen her in. She's got a bunch of like movie credits and TV movies and stuff like that, TV shows throughout the 70s and 80s. Then we have Ava Gardner, who I've heard of, but I don't know that I've actually seen her in anything else. She plays the landlord, Miss Logan, and her credits go back to 1941, so she's been in some things. Chris Sarandon is Michael, who is the boyfriend, and the main thing I've seen him in is Fright Night. He's actually in both of them, the original and the remake. In the original, he's the vampire. In the remake, it's a random cameo and he gets killed by, I can't think of his name now, that plays the vampire in that one, but he's only in the movie for a minute. Now, he's in other things, but that's the main thing I think he's known for. I think, I could be wrong on that. If he's known for other things, like really well known for other things, let me know down in the comments. Then we have John Carradine, who plays Father Helleran. I believe he was the blind priest. I don't recognize him by sight. No pun intended to the fact I think he's playing a blind character. He's in a lot of things that range from the Ten Commandments, that would be the one with Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner, to Ice Pirates. Also, father of David Carradine of Kung Fu fame. Famously known for not actually being an Asian man, despite playing one on TV. Then we have Jose Ferrer, who plays a priest. I think the Lord just called him like man in robes in the credits. I don't think he actually got a name. He's only in a couple scenes. Now, he is in Lawrence of Arabia, where he plays the commander in a Turkish city where Lawrence and Omar Sharif's character go in there, and I think he gets captured and tortured, if I remember right. Lawrence, not this guy. However, if you watch the kind of movies I watch, and I assume you do, that's why you're here, you would probably best recognize him as the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV in the 1980s David Lynch Dune movie. Then we have Arthur Kennedy, plays a priest, also in Lawrence of Arabia. He's the reporter who shows up about 2/3 of the way into the movie, starts documenting Lawrence's achievements on the battlefield and whatnot. Then we have Burgess Meredith, who plays Charles Chazen. May also be someone else. I'll get to that in the description. He is mainly known as Mickey from the Rocky series. But again, also the Penguin in Batman, the TV show with Adam West. But also, again, if you watch the kind of movies I watch, he's also Galopulus in the G.I. Joe animated movie from the 80s, the leader of Cobra Law. Then we have Eli Wallach, who plays Detective Gatz. He is probably best known as Tuco from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I believe he also played Mr. Freeze at various points in the Batman TV show. I believe. I think there was a couple different actors that played him. I think he was one of them. And he's also in one of the Godfather movies, and he's in all kinds of things. But yeah, I think Tuco's what he's best known for. And of course, every detective has to have a partner, like his partner, Detective Rizzo, played by Christopher Walken, who has like 2 lines in the whole movie. Christopher Walken, also known for playing the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, this time in the newer version of the Dune movie, the second one. And also, he's played all kinds of things. I just picked a few I liked. Also known as playing Max Zorin, the Bond villain in A View to a Kill, where he plans to blow up Silicon Valley and fights Bond aboard a blimp over the Golden Gate Bridge in the climax of the film. That one's great, in case you can't tell. Jerry Orbach, who plays a film director for like 5 minutes in the movie, probably best known as Lenny from Law and Order. He's also in some other things. I think he's in Dirty Dancing, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I watched that movie. Yeah. Beverly D'Angelo, who plays Sandra, a downstairs neighbor. Some other things that I'll go into. Probably best known as Ellen Griswold in the Vacation movies, opposite Chevy Chase. Then at the end of the movie, we have a couple that shows up looking for an apartment. They're basically just have a couple lines and they're just kind of there. One of them is Nana Visitor, best known as Major Kira from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and the other is Tom Berenger, probably best known as Sergeant Barnes from Platoon, but he's also in the Major League movies, Inception. I mean, he's got a pretty hefty resume. And then I didn't write him down because he wasn't listed, but Jeff Goldblum is definitely in the movie too. Or either that or it's like his doppelganger. But yeah, he's a photographer or something. Didn't sound like him though. I need to double check that. I mean, I swear it has to be him. But anyway, so we have quite the list here. These are people I recognized. Like some of the other actors could be other famous people too that I just didn't recognize. So, with all that, what is this movie about? Well, I should warn you that this movie has a couple very bizarre sex scenes in it. Definitely some nudity. And we see one murder, and it's pretty horrific. And a couple other kind of violent moments. This is definitely not a movie for children. Okay? So, just throwing that out there before I begin here. Alright. So, our main character, Allison, is romantically involved with, like I said, Michael. And she is trying to find an apartment. He's trying to convince her to move in with him. But she flashes back to her mom, and she wonders why her mom never left. And she said she had no place to go, and that sentiment's always stuck with her. So she's trying to find a place for herself, and she's looking around. Chris Sarandon's character's also looking around. He's trying to convince her to move in with him, so he's eyeing, a bigger place. And you see both of them are, basically about to get screwed by the people they're renting from. They're both like, oh, this is a line around the corner. It's now or never. And that's definitely not true. It's the 70s in New York City. I believe there was a recession going, unless I'm mistaken. So they both kind of get in the runaround. And she's looking at these places, and you're hearing these astronomical figures that almost kind of sound high even now, much less 1977. Or, yeah, 77. So then she comes across this one that's fully furnished, no neighbors. I should say few neighbors. And then she gets there, and the last apartment she looked at was much smaller, and they wanted, I think, $1,000 a month. Here it's furnished. They're covering the utilities, and the landlady wants $500 a month. And she initially is kind of like, well, I don't know, it's kind of high. And the woman's like, well, 400 is not that high. And she's like, wait, you said 500 a second ago? And she said, no, I said 400. And she's like, just need a $50 deposit, and we're good to go. She's just like throwing this apartment at her, essentially. So she agrees, moves in. In very short order, she meets one of her neighbors, who's played by Burgess Meredith, a very eccentric fellow, looking at some of the weird things in the apartment. He's got a cat and a bird, and yeah, weird guy. Then she meets there's a blind priest who lives on the top floor, just stares out the window. Well, I mean, I don't know if stares is the right term, he's blind, but you know what I mean. So, and she meets Beverly D'Angelo's character and the woman she lives with. They are definitely lovers, and that's where some of the bizarre sex stuff begins to happen there. So the movie progresses a little bit more, and you find out that the Chris Sarandon's character, that there's some sketchy things in his background. It sounds like his first wife might not have committed suicide, that she might have had a little help. And it's unclear how much Allison knows about that. Then in another flashback, you see that Allison has attempted to kill herself once before. She walked in on I might as well just be blunt here. She walks in on an orgy involving, I believe, her grandfather and a couple other women. And she ran to the bathroom, tried to kill herself. So, Chris Sarandon's character has hired a private detective to kind of look around, because the building she's moved in, well, she gets the landlady back over there, and the landlady's like, there's no one else lives in this building. And they check out the 2 apartments that the people she's met have supposedly living in, and they're full of cobwebs and everything. And so maybe she just imagined them, maybe she didn't, who knows. The movie's going to withhold answers for a while. Oh, and somewhere in there she went to a party in the building with several people. And so she starts to, she gives the police the names of the people that were there, and they begin to look into them, and they're all the name of convicted murderers who were sentenced to death. And also they're kind of looking at the husband, he's not a husband, but the boyfriend. Oh, and then she claims that she was attacked and that she defended herself, but whenever they went into the building, they couldn't find a body or anything. And the blood that was on her was her type. Mind you, it's the 70s, so forget DNA typing. And so the police are kind of stuck. In that the captain's, kind of shy on pursuing something against, I think Sarandon's character was a lawyer, so they don't want to pursue something against him out of fear of being sued unless they actually have some real evidence, and they really don't have anything to go off of. So some more things happen. Then the private detective that Sarandon hired to follow Allison is found dead, and she's like freaking out. She goes into the other apartments with him, and she's like, yeah, but this wasn't like this. These books were over here. And she picks up one book, and she's like, look, it's the same thing on every single page. And he picks up the book, and he's like, what on earth are you talking about? This is different on every page. And she's like, no, it's not. Look. And he's like, what's it say? And she starts reading off in Latin. He's like, this book's in English. Well, what are you doing? He's like, here, write this down. And so she writes it down, and he's like, oh my God, you actually are seeing this in Latin. What the hell's going on here? And so then he goes, he gets it translated, and it's from one of the passages from Paradise Lost by Milton. So assorted other shenanigans happen. It's obvious that that Michael knows some shady people. He goes and looks into the church because supposedly they're taking care of the blind guy upstairs, but they don't see any signs that's actually happening, and they want to know about him. So he breaks into the diocese there, and they check things out. And well, it turns out that the guy upstairs actually used to have another name, and then that guy just disappeared, and then he showed up as the priest later on. And he attempted to kill himself at some point back in the past. And they began looking at everyone else that's lived there before them, and it's the same story over and over and over again. And so the file also already had the guy's death date in there. And so he's pieced together that these people in the church intend on having Allison take over this role, because there's a file on her, and she's going to like fake her death or disappear or something. So he's concerned. Then he goes and checks it all out, and tries to get it so that she stays at a party while this is all supposed to be happening. And she doesn't. She leaves, goes back to the apartment building. He's in there trying to get answers out of the blind priest, but he's like strangling him to death because he's not telling him anything. Then someone kills him by clocking him over the back of the head with something. And so then she comes into the building, and then she runs into him, seemingly alive and healthy and everything. And he explains that what's going on is there's a doorway to the gates of hell, and someone has to sit there and watch over the doorway. So the current priest is getting ready to retire, so they need someone to replace him, and it's going to be her. And she's like, well, how do you know all this? And he's like, well, because I'm dead. It's like, you know, I got killed trying to kill him, and now I'm going to be damned to hell. And it's like, by the way, I killed my ex-wife. And so, yeah, sounds pretty bad. The only way they can stop her is if they somehow convince her to kill herself. So then Burgess Meredith shows back up, and this is the point where he may or may not be the devil. So he starts getting a bunch of other people to show up to start freaking her out and everything. And I don't really know what the purpose of it was, because mainly people with like weird, freakish deformities. Like, not the people we've been seeing so far in the movie that live in the building. I mean, we see them too, but like, just, you know, weird people. And so it gets to the end, and the blind priest fights his way through to her. She takes up the cross and, you know, decides she's not going to kill herself. So Burgess Meredith just kind of yells at all the others for them to go away and disappear, and then he disappears. That's why I say he might be the devil. And then you see them tear down the building and build a new one, and she's in the top floor, just like the last priest. She's a blind nun now. Then, you know, Tom Berenger and Anna Visitor's characters come in, and we're at one of the apartments, and Ava Gardner's still the landlord. So, yeah, I was definitely entertained. I don't know what to make of it, honestly. I might have to try to watch it again at some point, just to try to figure out, you know, there's just a lot of weirdness in this movie. And like I said, just the laundry list of people that are in this, that are in all kinds of other things. Yeah, it's just a truly bizarre movie. I don't know that there's not like a message or a point or anything like you'd expect in a current movie. It's just someone had an idea and probably a lot of cocaine and ran with it. And yeah, I don't know how, I'd never heard of this movie before, given the cast list, but I'd say it's probably worth a watch if you can come across it. If it's on Shudder, like I said. If it's on Amazon, I'll put the links like I've been putting in the other movies and stuff. I assume it probably had a home video release. But yeah, no, it's a weird movie, and like I don't know how much. Like I don't think she was just hallucinating these things. Like I think that was the spirits trying to get to her, trying to drive her to off herself. And because the movie doesn't actually say like what happens if that happens, other than like they break the chain of people that are guarding it. And I assume the whole going blind thing is so they can't be harassed by the spirits anymore, because it seems to be entirely visual. Like they don't really seem to have any like physical power over her. So yeah, I just weird. And I want to reiterate again, definitely not for children. Couldn't really say anything offhand about the soundtrack or anything like that. I didn't notice it, so I guess it did its job. Yeah, I mean it's moved from the 70s. It's very very vibrant at times. The one attack where she's going after someone, she's using a knife, cutting them open, and it's very it's very bright coloration on the blood and everything, but also really graphic. So yeah, overall, I feel like paranormal movies, 70s horror movies in general, like any one of these cast members, yeah, anything at all like that, it's probably worth checking out. I'd say it's probably a 6.5. I wouldn't say no to watching it again. Probably will watch it again at some point, just get an idea of what's happening. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know what else to say about this movie. Like, it's just so bizarre. Again, like if you're a horror fan, like it's definitely worth checking out. If you're not, I don't know. You might just find it too weird. So anyway, let me know what you folks think down in the comments. Have you seen this movie before? Considering watching this movie? Do you like the incredibly lengthy cast list? And people on it, like, oh, hey, that guy's in it. I'm going to check this out. Anything at all like that, let me know down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing, commenting would help us grow the channel. We always appreciate it, especially those of you who subscribe. Really appreciate that. But, yeah, that's all I've got today. So I will see you folks later.